Okay, so let's start. Um, okay, so you can see my screen, right? So just
Yes.
a quick recap, what exactly we have learned yesterday. So we have actually learned inferential and descriptive statistics. And in that, we went through some of the details of descriptive, like central tendency, various how you summarize the data, how you actually organize the data. So various techniques and all, which most of us are familiar with those techniques. And descriptive as such is false, like it is describing whatever the data that is there, and it uses various techniques to describe. Right? Inferential, as the name suggests, it actually infers. So you have some data. Based on this data, you are actually making inferences, which you don't have as a complete picture. You are just inferring from whatever that you have. So we also discussed in case of inference, obviously it is an estimate that you are, or rather you are. There are two types of inferences that can be made. One is estimation. The other is hypothesis testing. So estimation is nothing but you have sample and you are trying to estimate what would be the population mean. So you calculated average of your sample, you collected data for a few students and then evaluated what is the average marks for them. And then based on that, you are inferring for, okay, yeah, average marks in Karnataka state for mathematics subject is so and so. You're making an inference at a larger population level based on whatever that you did using sample. That is estimation. So estimation has got two types. One is point estimation, the other is interval estimation. Okay, point estimation is all about you actually estimating exact point, saying that, okay, yeah, average marks is this much in this particular sample. So average population marks would be, the 30 marks is the average in this particular class or in this particular sample. So average marks for Karnataka would be around 35. So you are actually trying to guess a particular point. An interval estimate is nothing but you are actually estimating an interval. So in interval, what you are saying, okay, average marks for my sample is 35. So at the Karnataka level, it would be around 25 to 40. So you are just giving an interval based on whatever that the thing that you have, right? So these are two types of estimates. So now the other one is hypothesis testing. So you have a research statement and you collected sample, and then based on that, you are trying to either accept the null hypothesis or reject the null hypothesis. So there also you are taking a sample. Based on your sample, you are actually trying to make certain conclusions. So it falls under inferential statistics. So today we are going to actually learn about both this estimation. So if time permits, we'll also go into the hypothesis testing part. So we also try to actually correlate this type 1 error and type 2 error, what exactly type 1 error is, what exactly type 2 error is. And we also talked about level of significance, right? So let's start with the level of significance and then go into the standard error and other things which are, which are. So the first technique that we are going to learn, the standard error, is associated with mainly the estimation point of view. So before we go into standard error, we again will try to revise some of these basic terms, right? Whatever I mean, Z value, significance level, P value, and all those stuff. And then we'll talk about standard error. Okay. So we already talked about significance level and statistical significance, right? So these two are something that we talked about already. So just to give again, what is the significance level? You are actually telling that how likely you are going to make type 1 error. What is type 1 error? Actually, no, null hypothesis is true, but you are actually rejecting the null hypothesis. So you are saying that, okay, yeah, I successfully proved that null hypothesis is wrong. is what is the statement that you are giving, but actually null hypothesis is true. So the probability of you making type 1 error is significance level. So how you are going to fix it? It all depends on the nature of your research work. In certain research work, you can't afford to have type 1 error. You can't afford to have type 1 error, especially in medical research and all. You need to have as less as possible this particular type 1 error. Hence, you will choose significance level very, very tight. But what it means, if you are actually increasing the significance level, what it means is you are stepping into the boundary of type 2 error, because you are making your criteria so strict that unless and until you have big concrete data for you to prove or disprove, you are not going to actually reject this particular null hypothesis. That is exactly what you are actually telling. So what does this mean, right? So you will have to balance your type 2 error and type 1 error. So you can't really go for saying that, okay, I will eliminate type 1 error altogether. You can't really go for that particular case, because what you are actually doing is you can remove error only if you go to the descriptive statistics. In inference statistics, removing error is nothing but you checking marks for entire Karnataka population to make an inference. So then that doesn't qualify to be an inference. It rather you are studying entire Karnataka and then saying that average marks is so and so for the Karnataka. So it is your sample size equal to the entire population. Then only it qualifies to have zero error. Okay, so depending upon your research, so you will select the significance level, and what significance level is telling. So yes, if you see this particular bell curve, so any point which is falling under this out linear, right? I mean, so basically the fag end is what you are actually saying that as the cases which I would ignore. So basically, so you are actually talking about, yes, if it is falling under this, I would reject. If it is not falling under this, I will accept the null hypothesis. So that is exactly what we are actually saying as significance level here. Okay. So yeah. So again, this Sunita has already touched it detail, but I'll just give a very brief overview, right? I mean, the significance level and p-value are related. So p-value is nothing but it is telling the probability of this, right? So it actually tells that, okay, yeah, if you are saying that your point is falling at this level, p-value would tell that, okay, yeah, you are not falling into the 99 percentiles of the population. So basically you are saying that it is very, very unlikely to fall into this particular category. To give you an example, let's say somebody said, right, I mean, average chocolate consumption in Karnataka is let's say 1 chocolate per day, and somebody is eating 5 chocolates per day, right? So where that person would actually fall, they might actually fall in this particular extreme case. It is like a very unlikely observation that is actually being made. So you can convert the same into the percentage, saying that, okay, yeah, this guy eats more chocolates than 99% of the population of Karnataka, because he is falling into this particular tail, in the end tail. So you are definitely saying that they are like very unlikely scenarios, because they are just like this guy falls into this particular smaller tail there. So p-value is nothing but it is talking about probability. So you can say that what is the probability of you getting into this particular tail is exactly what that p-value is actually talking about. Okay, so level of significance and p-value are related. That's exactly what we are trying to say here. Okay, so based on this particular level of significance, you can guesstimate that, okay, yeah, this guy falls into that, okay, yeah, very unlikely probable case, or this guy really, is into that probability, which is like very high probability of finding such case, right? So that's exactly p-value is saying. P-value is nothing but doing the probability. Okay, so to uh, uh, talk about some of the examples, right? So uh, so we can probably, uh, we can get into the problems related to this, so that we can get the clarity on this particular thing after we cover confidence interval and confidence level as well. Okay. So again, there is one more term called as confidence level. Okay. So this is again related to the p-value and the level of significance itself. Here what we are actually saying, P is talking about how unlikely the observation is. What is the probability of they falling into that unlikely observation? Confidence level talks about the other way. Okay, so it is nothing but that 1 minus alpha. Alpha is nothing but this significance level. So in a way, significance level, p-value, and confidence level, they are all talking the same. Okay, so they are like three different ways of you telling that, okay, yeah, I mean, p-value is talking about probability, unlikely probability, and confidence level is talking about, okay, yeah, how confident that he is like a likely, I mean, he is falling into this normal one. Okay, whereas the significance level is about setting the level. So they are terms used in different contexts. Okay, so when you start a problem, you would start saying that, okay, set the significance level for this problem. Okay, so when somebody is telling that, okay, find so and so with so and so significance level, so they are setting a mark, saying that if you meet this mark, then I can say that I am successfully rejecting the hypothesis or successfully accepting the hypothesis. So if it falls after this mark, then I am going to actually reject the null hypothesis. If it is falling inside this mark, I'm going to accept. So you are actually setting the level in case of significance level. So it is, this term is used while setting the level, because this is about you choosing the criteria under what conditions you are going to accept, under what conditions you are going to reject. Okay, where p-value is used, you found a point, you already found a point, you did some mathematical calculation, and you found that so and so person eats 5 chocolates per day, and somebody asked, okay, he eats 5 chocolates per day, and average Karnataka population is eating only 1 chocolate per day. Can you tell me where he falls? Is he exceptional or is he normal? Then you describe that particular thing using p-value, saying that, okay, he falls under that last 1% bracket, right? I mean, finding such person is of a probability of 0.01. So you are describing p-value by interpreting the result that you got. It is not about setting the level in case of p-value, but you can literally see that p-value and level of significance is related, but p-value is an interpreted probability. So you have a value and then you want to find where this falls, then p-value term comes into picture. Okay, so now the other term is confidence level. So if you reverse the this is again used in the context of problem, where you say that how confident you are about your result, right? Again, this is about like somebody is estimating that what is the this term is used in that context where, okay, somebody is guesstimating that, okay, what is the average consumption of population by taking the sample. You are trying to estimate it. So once you estimate, somebody asks how confident you are, then I'll say that I'm 99% confident. Okay, so it is used in the context of telling the confidence. But again, you can literally see the same bell curve. You again see that yes, there is a level. Based on that, I will check the percentage, and based on that, I actually infer the confidence level. Okay, so all the three terms, statistically, if you see, it falls into the same bell curve, same percentage calculation and all, but they are used in three different contexts. So don't get confused when things are utilized, when things are talked about significance level. While you defining the problem, you are saying that my research is successful if I am able to achieve 5% mark. That is significance level. Okay, and you got some value and you want to check where this really falls, then that becomes p-value, right? And confidence level, when you are trying to actually estimate, you estimate based on the confidence level. Okay, so what is confidence interval? So now when you are talking about estimate, right, it is always within the range. Confidence interval is all about that particular range, saying that I'm 99% sure that average consumption of chocolate would fall between 0.75 chocolates per day to 2 chocolates per day. So this is confidence interval. You are telling with some level that is 99% sure, and you are also telling a range. Okay, so now when we learn the standard error, so are we clear with these four terms as such? Now we are going to go into how exactly these things are calculated, how we estimate things when we go into standard error. But are we clear on these terms at this stage?
Praveen, the very unlikely observations that fall at the very end of that distribution, how
Yeah.
are they different from outliers? I mean, which are very far from normal mean.
Okay. So there are two. This is again the terminology thing.
That's
Okay.
what. Mhm.
Okay. So outlier are nothing but exception scenarios. Okay. But as a term, outlier is used when you are trying to actually, um, in certain algorithms, right? You are trying to find a relationship between two variables. Okay. You are saying that you want to draw a relationship between chocolate consumption and happy emotion. Okay. So now you collected data and you are trying to relate these two, saying that, okay, eating chocolates is going to make people happy. Okay. So now, once you have data and you did some analysis and you are trying to fit it into some equation, because you are finding that they are two related. But what happens in such scenario cases is there might be some psycho, okay, in your sample. And this psycho, no matter he eats how many chocolates, his emotion is always bad, let's say. Okay. So if you take that person into your sample and try to fit it into your equation will become wild. Because he is not really a common case. He is like a psycho who is not a common person. So you use terminology called as outlier to eliminate such cases, saying that, okay, this observation looks abnormal. Everything else looks somewhere in and around this area, but this person is something which is different. He ate 10 chocolates and still he is angry. Okay, so you use the terminology of outlier in such context where you are saying that, okay, this guy, I will leave it in the research. I will not take this sample at all. Okay, I will take rest of the samples and I will ignore this sample because this sample doesn't look to be fitting into any of those cases.
So are these unlikely observations are also ignored in confidence intervals as well?
No, 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 no. Okay, so basically, the terminology has to be used in the right way. So unlikely observations, you can see it in two different ways. Okay, so when you are talking about hypothesis testing, okay, so how we start hypothesis? What is null hypothesis? null hypothesis is something that meets my expectation without any research. Are we clear on that? So basically, I don't have to prove null hypothesis. What is alternate hypothesis? I need to prove alternate hypothesis. If I can't prove alternate hypothesis, then that means my research has to accept whatever the known fact is, right? So null hypothesis is the known fact. How I typically do. So general expectation that everybody will have is it would be into this normal distribution. But if you prove that no, it doesn't fit into this normal distribution, it forms the case which is an unlikely observation. Okay, then you are saying that my data, whatever that I found, is an unlikely observation. Hence, I am disproving or rejecting the null hypothesis. So you use it in a different way when it comes to the unlikely observations. Okay, so the term unlikely observation is different from outliers, even though the concept is about abnormal cases. But in certain studies, unlikely observations would actually tell you or draw the conclusion of accepting an hypothesis or rejecting the hypothesis. Okay, so the terminology is used in a different context, just like the Weyl significance level, p value, and confidence level are used in different contexts. Outliers are used in a different context. Unlikely observations here are used in a different context. Both are related. So I'm not really saying that unlikely observation or outlier is in an English way different. They are actually same, but it is used in different context as a terminology here. In certain cases, you will have to ignore the outliers. In certain cases, you are concentrating your research on the outlier. Okay, so or rather you are concentrating on the unlikely observations. So you should not ignore them. So it all depends on the context of your problem.
Yeah.
Did I answer your question?
Yes. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, so any doubts still? Significance level, p-value, confidence level, confidence interval? Okay, so now so there are two choices depending upon what people vote we can do. Okay, there is a small quiz that can that actually covers this hypothesis and some of these p-value and these concepts. So do we want to have a quiz first before going into standard error, or do we want to cover theory and then come back to this quiz?
Quiz.
We can do the quiz.
Okay, beautiful. So let me just stop sharing, or rather pause sharing.
Or Praveen, can we do the quiz once we are like, bored with the class? Like right now we are not sleepy because the class has just begun. So after 15-20 minutes, we might feel sleepy. So that time this quiz will be like, that alarming type. So we might, I don't know, just
I'm fine either way. So that's the reason why I give the choice to the.
Because the class just started later, we might feel sleepy now and end.
Okay,
And
so
might leave the class.
So let's do one thing. So let's actually cover standard error, and then anyway we have to do problem solving, and we'll do quiz as well.
Yes.
Okay, so standard error might not take long before we actually go into the problem solving mode. Okay, so so we can do that. Okay, so let's say we covered p-value, we covered confidence interval, we covered all those things, right? I mean, so we have z-score as well, right? So z-score is again talking about distance of your point. So z-score is closely related to your p-value. P-value is talking about probability, z is talking about distance. Both are related again. Okay, so all of them, whatever that we are talking about here, is really forming into this bell curve, and it is talking about the point, it is talking about distance, it is talking about probability. That's all. So all N1, they are same. Okay. Okay. So let's go into the one more concept, degree of freedom. Okay. So we already talked about statistical significance. So I'm not talking about statistical significance because we talked about it yesterday. So now we are going to talk about degree of freedom. So what is degree of freedom? Okay. So let's say you have a knob which can be rotated in two directions. Okay. So you can actually rotate it forward. You can rotate it backward. So now let's say knob, you are rotating it. Now you have the freedom of changing that direction into a different direction, because knob is capable of rotating in two ways. So the freedom of choice, when you are actually trying to, somebody is rotating it forward already. Now, if you want to change it, how many choices are there for you?
One.
Only one choice, because if somebody is already going forward, the choice of changing for me is only one direction, right? Even though knob can rotate it in two directions, when it comes to my choice, I can only say that there is only one choice to change. So similarly, degree of freedom also works in this way. Let's say you have 4 people or 4 samples, okay, or 4 criteria or 4 groups, right? So when you talk about degree of freedom, you -1 and then tell that, okay, yeah, if you have 4 people, then you say that your degree of freedom is 3. Okay, so that is why you subtract 1. So you are actually talking about how many choices that I can make when I'm changing it. Okay, if you have 100 people, then your degree of freedom is 99. Okay, so that is why it is simple n-1 that you actually do when you are talking about degree of freedom. Okay, so it is pretty simple. You always -1 with whatever the choices that you have. If there are 10 choices, then you actually do -1 and say 9 as my freedom. My freedom to change is 9. Okay, so sampling error, the last concept before we go into problem solving and the quiz and other things. Okay, so what is sampling error? So so you have a sample and there are various techniques to choose the sample, right? So now if you actually choose wrong set of people, you didn't sample right, then what would happen? Your inferences would be wrong, because ultimately the exercise that we would want to do is, I am going to take a sample, I am going to study that sample, and then based on this sample, I am making some conclusions. If you take a wrong sample, you took a bunch of psychopaths and you are trying to actually estimate the emotional changes for a normal Karnataka population, then will you actually get right results? You would not really get a right result. So your sample itself is wrong. So that that error related to that particular the way that you take the sample, whether you took an insufficient sample or whether you took you took wrong set of folks, whatever the error that could come out of this particular sample is called as sampling error. Okay. Okay, so now now along with sampling error, so there is one more error, standard error. Okay, so does it mean that when I take a sample, right, when I take any sample for that matter, or when I take any set of people, I would not really get consistent result always. See, for example, let's say you take a student and he writes max exam, he writes max exam last week. He wrote a max exam and then he got 100 out of 100. Okay, so with the same student, you again conduct the same mathematical test again after 15 days. You conducted same mathematical test, same student. Okay, what can happen is he might really score 99 or 98 or 97 because he would have like slightly faulted, or his mood is bad, hence he did not actually see the answer right, or he did some silly error. But still, this error, whatever that he made, is common because these variations would really be there, right? I mean, to give a example, right? So let's say you are studying two groups, right? So you are saying that okay, by putting the water, like I'm trying to actually study fertility of the soil. Okay, so if you plant trees in the fertile soil, will all trees get the same growth? No, right? So every tree might have a different growth. Okay, so and if you take poor soil, even there you have certain natural variations within those particular plants. So now when you want to conclude saying that okay, yeah, this fertile soil is really fertile because growth is good, and this poor soil is really poor because growth is bad. If you have to conclude, you have to deduct this natural variation so that you can concretely say that yes, fertile soil is really good. So there is some natural variation, natural error that really be there within a sample or within a population. Okay, so standard error is talking about that natural variation, that natural error. So this error is something which is going to be naturally there within a population. So if I take a sample, there would be some natural error within my population. So I am talking about this natural cause as far as the standard error is concerned. So when you are trying to actually distinguish, so how you are going to actually tell your sample is having an error, you need to actually separate this standard error and see if you have to measure the error and see that whether it is falling into the standard error category or it is really going into a category of, oh no, this error is really huge. So that means my sample is really bad, right? So this standard error is used in various ways. Okay, so are we clear on the concept of what is the standard error?
Yes.
Can you just repeat that once, Praveen, if you don't mind?
Okay, standard error is nothing but a normal variation that would be there in any population. Okay, for example, if you are talking about measuring the growth of trees, you are in a fertile soil, you are trying to judge the fertility of the soil, and you planted number of trees, but these trees has got different growth for different reasons. So fertility of the soil is only one that parameter. There is some natural variation between the trees for various other reasons. So this natural difference between all these different entities within this population is standard error.
Okay, got it.
Okay, so standard error, you can't really eliminate standard error when you actually take a population. Rather, you will actually estimate it and say that, okay, yeah, this is the standard error which is acceptable for such kind of data. Okay, so there is a formula using which you will talk about what is the standard error that is acceptable in this particular population.
And if the standard error becomes too big, then it becomes a sampling error.
Yeah, I mean, Yes. So basically, it is not about standard error getting big. The error is beyond the standard error, then it becomes a sampling problem. Okay, so the error is called as a sample error, which is a different term. Okay, so basically if you calculate an error and say that, okay, it is more than standard error, then it becomes the sampling error.
Okay.
Okay, but standard error as a term is about the natural variation. Okay, and this standard error is widely used to do the estimation. Okay, so we'll talk about how exactly estimation is really going to work. But as a concept, we are clear on standard error. Can I assume that?
Yeah.
Okay, so how this standard error formula really falls? So standard error for a particular sample is calculated using standard deviation and number of the size of the sample. Okay, so in this formula, whatever that I'm actually highlighting, S is the standard deviation, N is the sample size. Okay, so now see in this way, if the standard deviation is more in my sample, okay, what I am actually trying to say here, there is more chances of variations in my sample. So my standard error size grows, my standard error increases. If so, I have a varied population. What I am trying to say here is, yeah, there is lot of genetic variations within these plants, hence the growth, hence the size of these particular plants really vary a lot. So standard error is directly proportional to the standard deviation, and it is inversely proportional to the sample size. If you have better size of sample, then you don't really have to worry about the standard error. So you definitely know about that particular population. So two things which determine standard error: standard deviation and size of the sample. Okay. And using this standard error, okay, you can literally calculate the or estimate the size of the population, mean of the population. So there are various types of estimations that we can actually do. So we'll go through the problems so that we understand what these various types of estimations are, right? So to give you a simple example, right? So I'll give a couple of examples and then probably we can go into quiz and solve the problems or whatever it is. One example here is you have a test, reasoning test administered for around 225 boys of age group 15 plus years. So this is just a criteria to select the boys. It doesn't have any relevance in this particular problem. Mean score obtained on the test is 40 and standard deviation is 12. Okay, so if you are talking about how dependable or what is the mean of dependable the mean of the sample is, it is just this question is asking that what is the standard error which is possible within your sample, whatever that you have. So you have 225, that is n, you have standard deviation 12, so you are 12 by root of 225, which is 0.8. So standard error in this particular sample is calculated as 0.8. So there are two formulas. One is if it is sample is very large, then it is divided by n. If a sample size is very large, it is divided by n minus 1. Okay, so how it is determined large and small? If it is greater than 30, then it is large. If it is less than or equal to 30, it is small. So in this particular case, we are talking about 225 boys. It is much larger than 30. So hence the formula is root n. If it is small, then in this particular case, we have 26 boys. Okay, and again, test score is 40, standard deviation is 12. Okay, how exactly you're going to calculate? standard deviation divided by population minus 1, that is 2.4. Okay, these are two simple problems to calculate the standard error. Now you know how to how
What is Z? What is Z in the above? I saw. some-
I'll come to that. I'll come to that. So if you see the rest of the examples, then you will come to know. See, Z is nothing but whatever the Z score that you have seen over there. Okay. So I'll come to it, how this Z is utilized to. So in these two problems, we didn't do any estimation of the population. Okay. So utility of your standard error is not there in this particular problem. It is only talking about how reliable is your sample. Okay, so utility of estimation is coming down. So this is the actual problem, which is talking about how do you estimate population. So this is where the most interesting part of your standard error is there, right? So you have a you gave a language test for 400 boys, and you finally got the average score. So you want to find out what is the average performance in a language test for an 8th class students in Karnataka. You want to actually check that. So you took a small 400 boys group sample, and they wrote the exam, and you collected few statistics. You finally told that okay, average marks for them is 56, and standard deviation of my sample is 14. Okay, and using these two, somebody asked, now guess what is the average score of Karnataka 8th class students in entire Karnataka. Now you are trying to infer. Okay, so now you use standard error to do this inference. Okay, so we already went through the equation, how exactly standard error is calculated. Okay, and then now using the standard error, okay, what we do is mean of population of mean. What is the mean value of Karnataka population? Okay, mean of sample plus or minus Z into SC. Okay, I'll tell what is this Z into SC. Okay, now overlap the concept of what is Z. Z is the distance, right? How far it is. What is standard error? Standard error is talking about this much of variability is usual, right? You are saying that this much of variability will usually happen. So now what I am actually doing, I am actually taking this Z, multiplying with this usual, what is the usual error, and then trying to guess the range. Did I confuse or is it clear? So how this is happening? So here standard error is 0.7 in this particular case. So that means what this standard error is telling, 0.7 variance is common. 0.7 marks variance is something which is common across 8th class students is what we are actually saying. Okay, so what is Z? You are talking about confidence level. So what you are actually saying, if you go back to our curve, we are talking about, okay, 99%, you have to be 99% sure. What it means is it actually falls around this category here. Okay, so there is a curve here. So 99% falls somewhere here, if you see, right? It is in between this +2 standard deviation and +3 standard deviation. Somewhere here it falls. So what is the distance here is Z. So that is Z is nothing but 2 point. So there is actually a table which talks about if Z is so much, what would be the probability? Where is the table? Yeah, so basically there is a standard table which talks about if it is 99% sure, then this Z is nothing but 2.58. This is the distance. So based on this, what I'm actually telling, okay, I'm taking the mean of the sample, and then I'm guesstimating that around this range, it is acceptable for me to get the population mean. So with 99% confidence, I can say that population mean will fall between 54.196 to 57.806. So using standard error, using Z, I'm trying to make an estimate. Okay. Is it clear how we are actually making the estimate here? Using standard error, using Z, which is confidence level, we are trying to estimate what would be the population mean. So ultimately, you are arriving at a point where you are saying that with 99% of confidence, I can definitely say that population mean really falls between 54.96 to 57.806. That is exactly what you are trying to say here. Okay. So if we solve a couple of more problems, I think it would be more clear for us on how exactly this estimation really works. But as a concept, is it clear how exactly we are going to use standard error and try to actually estimate? Similarly, not only estimating the population mean, you can also estimate what is the sample size that you would really require to achieve certain confidence level. So you can even, so the utility of it is coming into picture when you say that I want to do research and I want to actually achieve 99% of confidence. Then how much sample size that I would really require? Do I require 400 people? Do I require 500 people? Or 50 people are sufficient? How will I actually do that inference? I can use the standard error and try to estimate things. So ultimately, whatever the point that we talked about as estimation is something which can be done using this standard error. Okay, so it is done by the combination of Z and standard error. Okay. Any
I think if
questions
we
or
do some problems, we will be more clear. I
yeah,
guess.
so it is a little heavy in terms of the concept, but the thumb rule that you will really have to understand here is standard error is nothing but an error which you are talking as an acceptable error which is going to be there in every population. It is a natural variation that you are talking about. Z is nothing but you're talking about, okay, what is the level of confidence? I mean, what is the range that I'm going to talk about? Okay, so based on these two combinations, I can guess or I can estimate it. Okay, so probably going through quiz and solving a couple of problems would actually, make things a little more clear in terms of the thing, right? So
Praveen,
any questions at a concept level that we have?
Praveen, Madhu here.
Yes, Madhu.
I understood the concept behind Z and standard error. Can you
Yeah.
just tell me how you got that 2.58 as the Z value?
Okay, so I'll tell you. Okay. So can you see this curve?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's say if I want to actually talk about 95% confidence. Okay. So can you see these lines? You can
Yeah.
see this line, right?
Yeah.
So this is 2 standard errors distance. From here, it is like 2. Distance is 2, right?
Okay.
From
Okay.
this middle one, it is 2. So if it is 2, that means the confidence level that I have is 97.7.
Okay.
Okay. So if I want 99, it falls around here.
Mm-hmm.
Can you see this?
Yes. Yes.
This is 99. And what is the width of this? 2.58 standard deviations.
Oh, I see.
So
Okay.
my 99 is directly translating into this value of 2.58.
Okay, got it.
Okay, similarly, 95 would be around 1.67 or something around that. 95 is around 1.6 something.
Okay,
Okay, so similarly, if you take 90, then it might be even lesser. It would fall around here.
okay, understood.
Okay, but the more the confidence that you want, your interval will increase, because you are talking about you are saying that, okay, I want to increase my confidence, then your prediction levels would actually change, right? So here in this particular example, we try to actually guess with 99% confidence. Imagine if you want to same problem. Let's take, if you want to actually take the same problem, and 1 minute. Let me share it in a different way. Okay, so let's say if I want to put this problem in a different way. Okay, so I want to check this level of confidence with 95% confidence, let's say. Okay, how I am going to do? First, I am going to, what all things I need to do? Step 1, I need to calculate standard error. Okay, which is going to remain same because the number I did not change, the mean I did not change, standard deviation I did not change. Right? What is the formula of standard error? Standard error equal to standard deviation of sample divided by square root of n. Right? So what is that? Standard deviation is 14 square root of 400. So nothing but 14 divided by 20, that is equal to 0.7. Right? Yeah. So whatever that is calculated in here is same standard error. But look at how confidence level is altering my prediction. Okay, based on this level of confidence, so which is 95%, my Z distance, Z score is 1.67, let's say. Okay, it could be slightly here and there. It is around 1.6 something. If you see the table, you'll get to know. But let's take that it is 1.6 standard deviations away. Okay, so now how I am actually guessing the interval? So here, let's say mean of population equal to mean of sample plus or minus Z into standard error. Okay, so here mean of population is 56 plus or minus 1.67 into 0.7, which is 56 plus or minus 1.67 into 0.7. Okay, 1.169. Okay, so if I minus it 50, so that means what I am saying is 54.831. My population mean of population would fall between 57.169. This I can tell with 95% confidence. Okay.
Yes, clear.
That's how the confidence level and Z score really gives you the chance to estimate. So should we go through the quiz?
What context do we use this?
In every context related to the estimation, right? I mean, we are estimating the population.
Okay.
you are trying to estimate in your you take a sample and you are trying to estimate it for the entire Karnataka. You just conducted this test with 400 boys, and now you want to tell that what would be the average marks in Karnataka. So any estimation context for that matter, especially when you are estimating about population from your sample, you are going to use this technique.
Okay.
Okay, especially if you have the standard deviations and other stuff. Okay, now this would not work when you are talking about non-parametric test and all, but that is something that we'll keep it away as of now. Let's not get confused too much around it. So simple concept that you'll have to say is it is used in estimation of your population from your sample, and vice versa. You have population stuff and you want to estimate what is the size of sample that you would really require, then also you can use, because equations work both ways, right? So you have standard error and you want to actually tell what would be the size of sample that I would really require. I can estimate that. Okay, so it is used for estimation purposes in the inferential statistics.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so any doubts in the concepts?
I'm sorry, I think I missed. What is the plus minus?
It is range.
Thing?
It is range. You are talking about range. You are saying that your population mean would be in this range with so and so. So it is interval based estimation that you are actually doing.
Okay.
Okay, so you are talking about an interval based estimation. That's all, nothing else. Okay, so it can fall under so and so. It can be ranging from so and so as far as your distance is concerned. That is exactly what you are trying to say here. Okay, because remember in this particular bell curve, 95% means not just this. 95% means this side of the curve and also this side of the curve. You are estimating this and this as well. So you are talking about interval, this from here to here. Okay, so yeah, any questions till now, or should we move into the quiz or whatever it is? Or do we want to close the class today and take this offline or tomorrow? That is also okay.
We can take the quiz.
Okay, fantastic.
Quiz, then we can
Okay.
close.
Yeah,
So Praveen, do you
stop
want me to
sharing.
record the quiz or should I stop the recording?
You can stop the recording, I guess.